Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Identity Factor podcast. My name is Robin Kiesler, and I will be your host. Let's go. Welcome in, everyone. Yes, I am so excited for today. We are continuing today with our Shadow Side Leadership series and talking about leadership and identity, talking about mental and emotional health, and all the ways that these things are integrated together to make for the most fulfilling, successful life. And Sarah Bond is a Christian forgiveness coach. She's our special guest today. Her mission is to help people find peace, freedom, and acceptance through the art of forgiveness, which I love. She teaches her clients what forgiveness really is and how to overcome the things that get in the way of that. And so we are going to dive into this conversation around the shadow side as it pertains to leadership and identity. And Sarah, if you'd like to introduce yourself at all more, please go ahead and then we'll dive in.
Hi, Robin. No, I think you did a beautiful job. I'm Sarah, and yes, I'm a coach, and I specialize and just in awe of just forgiveness and what it means and what it's done in my life, and it's just given me so much just peace and joy and freedom, and it's like you said, my mission to just share that with the world.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Sarah,
Hmm.
I'm going to invite you to tell us a little
Yes.
bit about your journey to discovering your identity as a leader in your field.
Mm. It's funny. I've always been for as long as I can remember, I've always been the kind of person that when I find something that I like or that works for me, I'm like, oh, you got to try this thing, or oh, you got to go watch this, so I think that just kind of comes naturally to me. So like I said, when I found this work and really dived into it, I couldn't help but share. So forgiveness is kind of my jam. I've really experienced over the last 10 or so years the power of forgiveness as like a deliberate practice. Um, so I think even before I found life coaching or became a coach, I feel like I've typically always been a very forgiving person in the kind of general sense of the term. I've typically always just kind of seen people, just as people that do human things, they act out. I've never really taken things super personally or made someone's choices like mean something about me. I always kind of knew it was about them and whatever struggles they were having. However, when I went through what for me was a really challenging and painful relationship and marriage, I learned that while, yes, I was this very forgiving person, I lacked a lot of boundaries. I lacked a lot of understanding around my trauma, my triggers, my shadow side. Um, and that experience led me to find the the coaching, but also that deep dive into this deliberate forgiveness work with a
Mm.
mentor, really diving into what it means and why we might want to make it, or why I might want to make it a daily practice, a daily lifestyle. And that's what I do now.
I love it.
Hmm.
What were you may have just touched on this. I know you did just touch on this a little bit. I'm just
Hmm.
curious if there's anything else in addition to that that comes up for you when you think about the most important or those defining moments potentially
Yeah.
within that relationship experience even
Oh, for
um,
sure.
that
Yeah.
brought you to this point today. Were there any like moments that you felt really defined you in this work?
Well, yeah, again, definitely the romantic relationship side. I was married once and then divorced, married again, separated, reconciled, separated again, and now headed for my second divorce. So, I would think things like, I'm this intelligent, capable, strong woman. What is happening? What
Yeah.
is happening right now? Why am I struggling so much in these close, intimate relationships in particular? Why am I choosing these partners? The quote unquote failure,
Yeah.
if you will, of those marriages really led me to question everything.
Mm.
Everything I thought about love, everything I thought about my childhood. and it led me to reflect and just gain different perspectives. So the process of healing from the pain of those experiences and learning to look at things in a new way has created a tremendous amount of awareness for me, for who I am, the way I do things, and, kind of pushed me to evaluate the way I treat myself, which was certainly a reflection of the way I was treating other people. And I just learned to question everything and find my own answers. And that process has been so freeing. Um, just me being who I am, I can't help, again, just to tell everybody about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you talked about this being like a daily practice and how
Mhm.
much emphasis you really put on this being an intentional daily
Yeah.
practice, is that something as well that you
Mhm.
experienced like for yourself, either as a necessity or as a benefit, or what was it that made created that shift for you where you're like, I want to become very intentional about this and
Yeah.
having this be a daily?
Yeah. Well, when I noticed, because when I wasn't making it a daily practice, I noticed that I would just forget about it. It would just become an afterthought, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I forgive you. But it was, it was just kind of, it didn't have a whole lot of meaning behind it. And what I noticed is when I did do the daily practice, I was just much more conscious of it. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like if you want to get good at something, you want to practice it
Oh,
every day, right? If you want to get good
yeah.
at playing the violin or, whatever it is, you practice it every day. And I wanted to get so good at it that, and I'm still working on it, but I want to be so good at forgiveness that I can do it instantly. I'm
And
at a point right now where I can do it usually in the same day.
yeah,
Versus taking years or months or
yeah,
weeks or whatever. I'm at the point I've practiced it so much I can do it in the same day. But my goal is to have just so much consciousness and awareness around it that it's almost instantaneous.
yeah.
Hmm.
And can
Yeah.
I just ask you quickly too, Sarah, why has that mattered for your not only for your mental health, but also for your ability to show up as a leader in your business and for the people that
Yeah.
you serve?
Well, for my mental health, it's definitely helped me because for me personally, I am someone who naturally just wants to ruminate.
Mm.
I want to think about, I want to blame, I want to, do all those things. And so for my own mental health, the quicker I can get to that freedom of forgiveness where I can look at things from a different perspective and, not make it mean something about me. This the quicker I can get there, that's just what helps my own brain and my own mental health and my own nervous system too, to be able to cultivate that practice.
Yeah.
And then
Like
and then what was the question about as far as a leader?
yeah, like yeah, you answered that. Yeah, so
Mhm.
how it's helpful, like obviously how it's served you in your own mental health, and then
Mhm.
are there places where you've noticed as well that as you do that work and free up that resistance and allow yourself
Yeah.
to kind of step into that space, have you noticed a benefit to your business, the way you're able to
Mhm.
show up as a leader, as an entrepreneur, for your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's just about being just kind of setting that example,
Mm.
right? If I can show up and I love to think of, the ripple effect. If I can show up that way, if I can set that example and give them a picture of the possibility of that, then it's just going to have that ripple effect, not just to them, but also the people around them. That's just kind of the way that I look at it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
100%. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, let's dive in now to this idea. We've kind of talked about leadership a little bit and some of the mental health um, challenges that you've gone through and the benefit of that and how it's affected your business, which I love. But if you're open to it, I would like to dive in a little bit to this idea of the shadow side
Hmm.
and how we experience that, right? We talk a lot about the 50-50 of life. we're both life coach school coaches. And so at the life coach school, that's one of the concepts we teach and talk about a lot is the 50-50, right? The day and the night, the joy and the pain, the ugly and the beautiful, right? That's all a part of us. And so, but so often we try to hide the shadow,
Mm-hmm.
right? The parts of us that we don't like, that's what the shadow is, right? The shadow
Yeah.
side is the parts of us that we would rather deny or hide away, that we don't want the world to see. Um, and and so I want to dive into what those things are for us and why they matter, right? And
Yeah.
so for you, my question is, what do you think has been your most inconvenient or persistent shadow part?
I just have to pick one.
You can, however many, or what, you could, all right, you can have three.
Three.
Because
Okay.
I have three.
Yeah. Well, first, just thank you for bringing this to the table. And I will admit that I was nervous and kind of scared to talk about it. And it's, I think also in Christianity too, it's one of those things that, everybody's trying to be good and everybody's trying to do the right thing. And I think it's so important to bring this into the light and to talk about this kind of stuff. So, okay, if I have to pick three.
However many
um,
you want.
yeah. The first one that comes to mind would be the opposite of self-confident. So it would be that really doubtful, insecure piece. I think most of the time I come off as pretty confident, but I actually do have that very insecure side that I deal with about, oh, what is the right thing to do? Is this what I should do? Um, which kind of brings out my controlling side. I don't like uncertainty, so I like to think I have to control me and everyone around me because I have this idea that I think I know what's best. I know what's best for them. I know what's best for the situation. Um, and so that makes me think of pride.
Oh, good one.
Pride is a big one for me. I really like to be right. I like to prove that I'm right. I don't like to be told I'm wrong. It feels deeply, deeply shameful for someone to point out to me that I'm wrong or I may be wrong. So I don't like to be told what to do. Um, and then probably the last one would be like ambiguity. Like sometimes
Mhm.
I just have there's a side of me that's fiercely independent, and the ambiguity comes in where I'll just kind of be like, don't care, don't care, don't need anyone, don't need you. You don't matter, what you have to say doesn't matter. So it's like the pride mixes in with
Yeah.
the ambiguity. And I just think I can handle everything myself.
Yeah. I think
Hmm.
there are so many people out there that are resonating with that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a tough one to talk about because
It's
ooh, if you
such a tough one to talk
especially in the
about.
church, like
Yes.
ooh, pride is like very no.
Yes. And I think this is
Yeah.
where this ties into identity, right? Because it's like we have this way that we want to be seen in the world.
Hmm.
And especially as we talk about leadership, right? Christianity, there's a lot of levels of identity. There are a lot of ways that we will identify ourselves or attach ourselves to things.
Yeah.
And and I think that 100%, Sarah, I think you're so right, where it's like, okay, like, so then in order for me to belong in this group, in order for me to be okay, in order for me to be safe, in order for me to be
Yeah.
accepted and loved, I have to be right. I have to fit in the box. I have to, right,
Yep.
be the good Christian.
Yep.
And what does that mean? And right. And so like, and for me, like as a queer person, like we could talk for a long time about the
Hmm.
identity factor as it
Yeah.
relates to, being too gay for the church, being too
Hmm.
Christian for the queer community. There's nowhere that I fit in. And now let's just talk about all the other layers of humanity and the reasons why I just am not good enough.
Yeah.
And it's just so easy to do. And so instead, what we try to do is we either try to fix ourselves or we try to hide.
Yep.
So either I have to fix this part of me that's difficult to admit, even
Hmm.
though the entire world is struggling with the same thing or their
Yeah.
own version of it.
Hmm.
Or if I can't fix it, then I need to hide it. And I need to
Right.
pretend that I'm strong and secure and sure and right. Don't be needy. Don't be this. It's like there are so many versions of that. So
Yeah.
thank
And you
you.
touch on
Yeah.
being, feeling like you want to hide it. And I think that's part of why I was like, oh, this feels nervous and vulnerable to talk about this, because it's true. I think everybody can relate to this. We all think I'm the only one that feels
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet, when it comes to this idea of leadership, I think that's why it's so powerful because for me, the leaders that I respect the most, the leaders that I want to follow, are the leaders that give me permission to bring my ugly.
Yeah.
The leaders that give me permission to show up as I am, right? And to believe somewhere deep inside that my darkness does not negate my light,
Yeah.
right? That I am worthy and beautiful and that I have something to contribute in the world and that these parts of myself, the pride, the anger, the controlling, the shame, the depression, the anxiety, the neediness, right? Like how
Yeah.
many relationships have we been in that are like you're too needy or the other way around, you're too avoidant, you're not
Yep.
nurturing enough. There's
Yeah.
something wrong with you, right? No matter which side of the coin you're on. And so I think the leaders that are willing to stand up and share that story and normalize that and say that, you know what, it's okay. We all have, again, the 50-50,
Hmm.
the day and the night, the joy and the pain, the light and the
Yeah.
dark. And so to begin, the first thing is to name the shadow, which you've done. And
Hmm.
I beautiful. And then the second thing, after we're able to name the shadows and admit that they're there, that part of our humanity, the second question that I have is what do you think that this shadow is trying to protect you from or give you control over?
Mm. Well, like I said, for me, there's something deeply, deeply shameful about being wrong. So, which is again is why I try to control everything.
Yeah.
And I think and I've discovered, I think it has a lot to do with how I was raised. Of course, I was raised single mom, but I was like the golden child. If anybody kind of knows what that means, it's like I could do no wrong. I was very much put on a pedestal. And so I've learned that I equate love with praise.
Oh,
So if you're not praising me, if you
yeah.
don't think I am like the cat's meow, so to speak, then you don't love me. And then I'm being rejected or abandoned or something.
Yeah.
So, so that definitely is what I think that is trying to protect me from,
Is rejection.
is an abandonment. Yeah, for sure. And then, if I'm not being or if I stop being doubtful and I give up that control, right? And I just fully step into, my role, that would mean that somebody might see all of me. Right? And if
Yeah.
I do that, then I'm definitely going to get rejected,
Yeah.
or I'm going to get called out for something, that again will just immediately fill me with shame. And that's where my mind just goes, well, I'm not lovable, I'm not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I've noticed in doing this work that's just coming into my brain right now is even just like when I've had, even these podcast interviews as I'm, sharing bits and pieces of my story along the way. And of course you are too. Um, this is a question that I just thought about just now that I'm curious about is Sarah for the leaders, the entrepreneurs, the people, right? Whether you as a leader, whether you're a parent, partner, friend, pastor, teacher, school principal, there's so many ways, that leadership shows up. And I think that there are a lot of people that disconnect themselves from that definition because they think of a leader, from this very,
Mm,
again, external praise and fame and notoriety and power, right? But I don't think that's the kind of leadership we're talking about, and I don't think it's the kind of leadership that matters. And so for the people that are listening to this, um, and when we think about, naming our shadows and especially talking about this publicly, it's like, what do you do with the when that what's the word that I want to call it when the wash of shame comes after the vulnerability,
mm,
right? Like, ooh. did I just talk about that publicly? Did I just say that? Like, how do you support yourself? And so that is how this might show up for you or I later. But even for people that might be experiencing that, in their work, or so this leader's like, okay, I'm going to do this scary thing and I'm going to do what Sarah did, and I'm going to be vulnerable with my family. I'm going to be vulnerable with my wife. I'm going to be vulnerable with the other teachers at school,
Yeah.
right? Like, can you, just as a side note, give them anything to hold on to when that fear, that shame, that negative self-talk comes, because it will.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Yeah, it
then
will.
how do we have our own back, and what do we do
Yeah.
in that moment, just as a side note?
In that moment, I what I have learned to do that has helped me the most is breathe. Like it sounds so simple, but literally just kind of put my hand on my heart or my chest and like remind myself I'm okay. That I am actually experiencing the shame
Yeah.
and that's okay. What I used to do is just feel this awful feeling and then freak out and then go in my head and think about all the reasons that I had just done something wrong. Now I can just recognize, oh, there's that feeling again.
Which is super interesting, right? Because all the reasons I've done
Mhm.
something wrong, going right back to that shadow belief that if I do
Yeah.
something wrong, or if I am wrong, that I won't be loved. So then just
Yep.
driving that wound deeper and deeper.
Yes. Yep. So a lot of just again, not freaking out when I feel it. It's more of like, oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Hi. It's almost like making friends with it. It sounds kind of funny, but it's almost like, oh, hi, there you are.
Yeah.
I see you and it's okay. And I
Yeah.
do. That's a big one that I just remind myself like you're okay and it's going to be okay.
All okay. And I love what you said there. And one of the things that I do, just for the listeners as well, just to build on that same thing, is I really do think of it and relate to it as this person, this protector, this, because that's what it
Mhm.
is. It's a protective
Yeah.
personality, if you will. It's a protective mechanism, right? It's something that got created
Mhm.
truly and onboarded and brought on
Yep.
part of the team in order to protect you from something. And so
Yeah.
it's just doing its job,
Yeah.
right? And so just noticing that there's just a part of you inside of there that just might need some love, and
Mhm.
that's an opportunity and indication for you to be able to come home to yourself, to be able to love yourself deeper, stronger, right there, that it can be hard, and of course you can get support, right, and have someone to talk to that can really help you to do that. But my thought that I would tag on to that for everyone is just to know that there truly is and can be a beautiful opportunity for you there, if you want it,
Yeah.
to deepen your relationship with yourself, to deepen the love and the care and the nurturing and even the confidence that you end up
Yeah.
having on the other side of it, right? Yeah.
I always have this fun image in my mind when it comes to any of my like emotions. I imagine them coming to the door of my home or something and knocking and I always want to open the door and let them in. They're always welcome. Versus,
Mhm.
in the past I'd be like, you know,
Not
adding
that
dead
one.
adding deadbolts to closing the curtains. No. But now it's like you're welcome. Come
Yeah.
in and they always have a seat at the table, so to speak. Like
Mhm.
you've always got a seat at the table, and I may not always let you have the microphone and run the meeting,
Yes.
but I love you, I'm so glad you're here, here's a warm cup of tea and a blanket.
Yeah.
And and
Yeah.
I'm just glad you're here. Here, do you want to tell me something? Okay, thank you for letting me know. And
Yeah.
that's how I've sort of like to think of it. It's like, you're welcome. I'm not
Yeah.
going to just block you out anymore. Yeah.
I adore that.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, that is such a perfect analogy and such a beautiful way to relate to these parts of ourselves, right? Like that feels, to me, that feels accessible. Hey, if you're enjoying this episode, I want to invite you to come join us on May 19th through the 21st for the Shadowside Leadership Summit. It's going to be an entire weekend where we're going to dive into these conversations around identity and leadership, around mental and emotional health, around how to support ourselves so that we can truly lead others in a more impactful way, that we also get to experience connection and joy along the journey. ShadowsideLeadershipSummit.com. Go sign up and we'll see you inside. Can you name what your light sides are?
I think I can. I think my light sides are I have a lot of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of grace. Um, I'm not really sure where this kind of view comes from, but I feel like I just see people, I separate people out from the things they say and do. It's like I feel like I can recognize their human side from like their just pure, perfect, beautiful soul.
Yeah.
And that's again what helps me not take things personally, still love them no matter what they've done or said. And call it forgiveness, but I think it's a little deeper than that for me when I'm fully in that like loving and compassionate and graceful light side. I actually don't even see anything to forgive because I don't think anything's gone wrong
Yeah.
because I see humans doing human things
Yeah.
in and they're just it what it means to me is they're most of the time it's just they're doing these human things in an effort to get back to that light.
Mm. Yeah.
And we have to be in the darkness to
Yeah.
get to the light many,
Yeah.
many times over and over.
Yeah.
And I've come to embrace that it's not about not ever being in the darkness. It's about the lessons that we learn from that journey and from that cycle that and then from those lessons we then know how to get back to the light when we're back in the darkness. That's what matters. It's never about the quote unquote mistake. It's about the lesson and then what we choose to do
Yeah, and
from that point.
how that thing is really growing you and
Mhm.
contributing, right? So I think that's the thing is we often forget that the quote unquote, like you said, the mistakes or the quote unquote failures or the things that are hard or that we're ashamed of or whatever it is, it's like all of those things have, either like you said, like a lesson or even just maybe another way to think about it is just a contribution,
Mhm.
right? Like there's some way that that thing is growing you,
Yeah.
and for many people it's like o- these parts of themselves. I talk to people all the time that are like, that's the part of me that allowed me to be so successful, that
Mhm.
helped me to get where I am, that's, like you said, that created safety, that helped me to survive, like that it has had a function for you and an
Yeah.
important one. Doesn't mean that you have to stay there forever, but that's like you said, with these, as we get good at this and learn this process and learn these tools, the beauty of it is that we don't have to stay in that darkness,
Yeah.
but we don't have to freak out that we're there either.
Right.
We can just allow it all to be a part of that process,
Mhm.
and to realize that it all has value,
Yeah.
really.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay. So when you are, maybe feeling out of touch or a little out of control with these light sides of yourself, just like we
Yeah.
talked about. So we're talking about going from the darkness into the light and learning how to have some agency and some control. So we're not just on autopilot. Life's not
Mhm.
just happening to us, right? We actually get to decide,
Yeah.
our journey and have some control over that. So when we look at that journey, what are some of the ways that you have found to begin reconnecting or reestablishing like that sense of oneness or that
Mhm.
that connection with those highest parts of yourself when you need it?
Yeah. I think we probably kind of touched on this a little bit, but it just reminds me of just the beauty of being human, that I'm just having a human moment and that the light is always available. But like you said, it's not a problem, that like if we're in the dark, that's part of being human and that's okay. I'm supposed to be experiencing whatever it is that I'm experiencing, not just to get back to the light, but to learn something from it, right? Like
Mm.
I find a lot of peace in that, not just in forgiveness, but in that acceptance of those dark times. And I remember not to fight it. And that that's kind of what that light side does for me, is it reminds me not to fight it, just to allow it. It reminds me that I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, that I can handle. But there's nothing I can't figure out.
Yeah.
It's funny, my aunt, she calls me the fixer. Anytime like she can't figure something out, whether it's, a broken refrigerator or maybe an argument with a family member or something, she asks me because she knows that I will always figure it out. I don't know how to fix refrigerators, but I'm going to figure out, and I'm going to keep going until I do. I just don't give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is what you're saying then. So like when you find yourself in the darkness, wanting to kind of reconnect with those higher parts or those light parts when you're tired, when you're done being there, what I hear you saying, and tell me if this feels right for you, is that you just don't resist it.
Yeah. It's like just being right there with myself where I'm at.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
I'm right now I'm having this vision of, I'm there's a version of me standing up in the light at the top of the mountain, and then there's me down here kind of still lost in the woods,
Yeah.
but I go down and I meet myself there. I don't stay up here being like, "Hey, come on." I'm like, "No, I'm going to come get you
Oh, I
and then
love
lead
it.
you, and we're going to go together."
Yeah. So
That's just
yeah, that's a
what I
beautiful. I
thought of.
love that. No, I appreciate that. Really helps because then so it is, it's like this, it's like this energy that I'm feeling is like an energy of like, again, like you said, just being and
Mhm.
allowing yourself to be where you are. It sounds like an energy of like recognition and just like being
Mhm.
present.
Yeah.
And like, because I think that's a beautiful point because when you're willing to really connect with yourself where you are,
Mhm.
you're not only going to be connecting with yourself where you are in the darkness, you are automatically, unavoidably going to be connecting with yourself as a whole, which is
Yeah.
going to include the light.
Mhm. Yeah.
I love it. That's beautiful. What advice would you give, Sarah, to anyone who's listening that is secretly hiding a part of themselves that they feel ashamed of or afraid of, or that they don't know what to do with?
Hmm. I think I would remind them that, without the shadow parts of us, like we wouldn't have the light. They've got to coexist together. We wouldn't know one without the other, right? And just learning to acknowledge both, embrace both, love both equally. It's the part of you that makes you so beautifully human and so uniquely you. And that's what the world needs. The world needs all of you, not just this one part of you. It
Yeah.
needs all of you. I heard an interesting quote the other day, that kind of resonated with me around this topic, and it said, "The extent to which we deny ourselves is the extent to which we deny our purpose of being here." So that kind of makes me think of that. It's like, where are we denying ourselves, and how is that taking away from our purpose of being here? And so how could we open up more and stop denying
Yeah.
any part of ourselves so that we can step into that purpose?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Like it just makes me think about like even right now with you, it's like your willingness to share these parts of you that were hard to share.
Mhm.
And it's like that, it's like I can feel it. Like I'd rather just shove it and keep it in the closet. But it's like, but just noticing that again, I think it's a beautiful example of that willingness to open up and to share that and to bring it into the light. Like had you not been willing to do that, you would, in a sense, be denying your purpose of being here because your purpose, again, right now in this moment, just specifically as we talk about, your business and what you help your clients do around forgiveness, it's like so much of forgiveness, I think, is about permission,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Mhm.
like permission to be who you are,
Yeah.
right? And so when you give yourself that permission, you are it, you're doing it for other people too, right? Like you
Yep.
said, you're modeling that and you're giving them permission as
Mhm.
well. And so the very act of doing that is, like you said, is really allowing you to step into that and to live out that purpose in such a bigger, more beautiful way, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that people have to do it. I like to say that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's you don't have to. It doesn't make you a better person if
No.
you do, right? It's not like you're more, evolved or whatever. I mean, but it's like it doesn't make you a better person. It's not wrong. There are some people who aren't ready to do that or to go there, and I just think it's important to say that that's okay too.
Yeah.
You
Agreed.
don't,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
you
And
don't,
if all you do, right, is even just kind of in front of the bathroom mirror,
yeah,
start to explore that, if it feels safe, like, yeah, there's no, doesn't mean you have to all of a sudden go out into the world and, get
yeah.
on a big stage. And no, we're not all meant to do the same thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, so important, right?
Hmm.
That you're for anyone who's listening, like, yeah, that you're perfect exactly where you are. This is all
Yeah.
part of your journey, and this conversation is truly just meant to be an offering, an invitation, a consideration, just to know that it's an option, right? I think I spent a lot of my life not realizing that there was an option to feel better, to forgive myself, to forgive other people. I didn't realize that it was an option for me to reinvent myself as a person that had an entirely different emotional capacity, a
Yeah.
different emotional experience. Like I just didn't realize it. So I think
Hmm.
that's the importance of this conversation is just to say that you're beautiful exactly the way you are.
Yeah.
And whatever you decide is okay, but just to know that there is this other path here and there is this option and it really is a beautiful path and a beautiful journey,
Hmm.
albeit hard at moments, right?
Yep. Yes.
So my last question for you, Sarah, is speaking of the journey and the hard parts and the path, what was your moment of greatest joy along that journey?
Mm. You know, when you're in the thick of something and you're just working so hard to figure it out and you're just in the mud and you're just struggling to get through it and struggling to even just breathe. That moment when you just realize that everything's going to be okay. But there
Yeah.
usually comes that moment. Sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it happens quicker, sooner rather than later. But there's usually that moment when you're like, this is going to be okay. This is going to work out. And it feels like the weight of the world just kind of lifts off your chest. I think one thing that I've learned to do is really not just savor that moment, but celebrate and cultivate that moment more and more in my life. And that is what joy feels like to me.
Mm,
So it's even so what joy means is even in the midst of everything that life is given us, throwing at us, that we're going through, I can be in a whole bunch of pain, but still feel that joy, if that
mm,
makes sense.
yes.
I would say, yeah, that's the big. I know it's not just like one moment, but that's a moment that I can specifically pinpoint and think of in all of my trials and tribulations. Like I have that moment where I'm just like, it's gonna be okay.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
you can just breathe again, even and then just allow it's kind of like clean pain, dirty pain. You can just allow yourself to be in whatever you're in. If it's sad, if it's heartbreaking, but you're not adding like that extra weight of
Yeah.
sorrow on top of it, thinking that just like the world is ending. Yeah.
Right. You're just being with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of that, like, listening to Stacy Bayman in her 2K for 2K program, one of the modules that she teaches in there, she talks about the moment that she was like, life coaching, and she's like, I wasn't rainbows and daisies on a tall mountain somewhere, just celebrating in joy, but she's like, I was actually going through a breakup, and she's like, I was heartbroken, but she's
Mm.
like, I was able to sell life coaching in that moment because she's like, because what I realized was that I knew how to support someone in that, and that's what so many people are wanting. But specifically this part she was sharing was she was like, I remember being in my car, and she just said I was just had a moment where I was so acutely aware of how broken my heart felt. Like I was just in so much
Mhm.
pain. And she's like, and that was the moment it dawned on me where I felt alive.
Amazing.
Right? She's like, I felt
Yes.
because exactly what you're saying. She wasn't
Mhm.
adding the dirty paint on. She's like, I just
Yeah.
allowed myself to feel what was real, what was true,
Yeah.
what was raw, what was authentic, that real, raw, authentic truth of
Mhm.
pain and heartbreak. When you can say yes with all your heart, when you can scream yes,
Yeah.
right? It's like, and just going out into the rain and just letting the rain fall and just
Mhm.
like dancing in the rain, right? To be like,
Mhm.
yes, I want all of life.
Yeah, and that
Want
gives me
all.
goosebumps. It gives me goosebumps when you say that because that is what it means to be alive.
Yes. That's what it means to be alive. And so in those
Mhm.
moments where we feel, even like for me right now, right? We were talking about before this call, like going through the project, like that speaks to me. That's something that I'm like, ooh, that's my work today. That's my work right now.
Mhm.
Right. As I'm going through all of this and I'm like, oh, and trying to, in coordinating everything and doing all this stuff, it's like, what if it's all okay? What if nothing has gone wrong? What if this moment, right? I'm a little tired
Yeah.
today. I'm a little like, okay, that first week was amazing. Now we're going through the thick of it, right? And this is
Yeah.
like it's crunch time. We've got 10 days to put, and it's like as I'm in that moment of building this thing, there is inevitably that day, that point where it's like it's not all rainbows and daisies, and I wouldn't want it to be
Yeah.
necessarily, right? Like sometimes before we got off the call, I did say I wanted it to be. I was like, actually, I kind of want it to be, but just noticing that, right? Like,
Mhm.
what if, like, in this moment, I still kind of want it to be, and I can be honest about that, but what if
Mhm.
I can at least let go of the resistance and just say it doesn't have to be? I
Yeah.
am willing to let this be a part of it
Mhm. Yeah.
and just be present with what it means to be alive as an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, as a leader, as a parent, partner, friend, as a human,
Mhm.
right? I
Yes.
love that invitation. Sarah, how can people find you?
People can find me on I'm on Instagram at Sarah Bond Coaching, and I also have a website, thechristianforgivenesscoach.com, and YouTube channel by the same name.
Beautiful.
Oh, and podcast. Super fun name of my podcast. It's called Forgive Everyone for Everything Every Day Right Away.
I love it. Heck
Can't miss
yeah.
it with that title.
Can't miss it. No one else has it.
No, that's that title.
Sarah, it was so lovely to have you. Thank you for being here, and I can't wait to see you at the summit.
Can't wait. Thanks, Robin. Mwah.
If you enjoyed this episode, take a screenshot of it for me and share it on your favorite social media platform. And in the meantime, I just want to invite you to remember that you are beautiful, that you are worthy, that you belong. See you next time.